I'll go same thing. BJ, Ron, and then John to start us off.
How's it going, Tim?
Hey, BJ.
Hey, I hate to kind of start it out with like a somewhat negative question, but the red zone issues, Andy just answered 3 or 4 questions about it earlier. What are you guys looking at there? And I'm sure you'd prefer 7 over 3, but you'll take the 3. How do you look at the red zone issues?
Yeah, it's not been good enough, BJ, especially the last 2 weeks for sure. And, you look at our red zone trips, and we've got over 50 on the season. So obviously we're moving the ball the way we want to, but we're not finishing those drives. And it starts with just operating early on the drives, just like anything. Like on first down, we're getting behind the sticks too much. And so it's putting us in some second and longs and some third and longs, which never want to be in third and long, but third and long from the 10 is even more difficult, So it's we got to do a better job on early downs, and we get down there being efficient. We had some things set up this week, some screens that looked promising, and we just didn't finish it correctly. That could have been touchdowns down there. So definitely an area that we got to improve on here as we finish the season.
You've had a couple games in a row now, and some fans have asked me about this. So I'll just ask you, where George gets the ball 5, 6, 7 plays, or he's in there and you guys go all the way down the field, and then you get to like 3rd and short, 4th and short, and George is nowhere to be found on the field. Is that how does that factor in? Was he tired, or how do you look at, using him, but also want to get the other guys involved?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good balance of trying to figure out getting guys the carries that we want. A lot of times when George starts a drive, like that's his drive. Now, if he gets fatigued, which on some of these drives, he had gotten a couple carries in a row and he was tired and he was asking to come out in that scenario. So sometimes that's him coming out. Sometimes in short yardage, we're going to try and get Van Buren in there because he's our short yardage back if we can for those spots, or different personnel for short yardage scenarios. But obviously we want him in there as much as possible, and he's obviously going to make us more explosive when he's in there. But it's more of a, is he tired within the drive? And then we got to get same with receivers, like Shaq might start the drive, and then if he gets a couple grabs, we got to get him out of there. And get someone in there for a couple reps. So it's similar that way, but definitely want to get him as many touches as possible. And obviously when he does, good things happen.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, BJ.
Hey, Tim. So we haven't seen Hank turn the ball over the last few weeks. I'm curious, is that just a product of his growth in the offense, or have you guys kind of changed something schematically to make things easier on him?
No, I think he's been, throughout the season, Ron, been doing a good job of being efficient, getting the ball out of his hand, being accurate. And I know it was a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, a lot of those turnovers that he's had this year have been in the second half, have usually been when we're down and maybe he's trying to do a little bit too much. So, don't want to go too much into that, but I think that what he's starting to learn is just how to manage the football game, how his role goes far beyond just the pass game, managing the run game, managing the RPOs, managing protection, and how, with our defense playing the way they're playing right now, if we don't turn the ball over and put them in a bad spot, it's going to be tough to move the football against those guys. And so I think he's taking a lot of pride in that. Hopefully not just him, but our ball carriers having good ball security. After the Nevada game where we had some balls on the ground, I think it was all of us looking at each other like, hey, we got to make sure this is a priority, that we don't have balls on the ground and we're putting things at risk. I think our whole group offensively has been doing a lot better with that.
Andy called Rocky Long's defense pretty unique. What makes it so unique?
He is one of the more, in my opinion, maybe in the history of college football, I think one of the most talented minds we've ever had. Gone against him a couple of times, playing up when I was in the FCS teams, playing up when he was at San Diego State. And, there's a lot of times there's logical world to scheme where the defensive structure is going to fit perfectly within, like, this gap is fit by this player versus this front. And, he was one of the first guys to go into what's called a 3-3-5 defense, where they couldn't recruit the guys where he was at to get the big D linemen. So he was going to cause a lot of more issues where he's moving guys around. And so the structure of it doesn't make sense logically sometimes to the quarterback or to the offensive line, because there's so much movement going on that it's not the normal targeting or the normal coverages that you're going to see. So what he's done is created a defense that for them is very simple, but for the offense is very chaotic. And that's what leads to all the pressures and negative plays that he's had over the years. So he is a tremendous coach and has proven it for a long time. So we have our hands full this week for sure.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Ron.
Hey, Coach. When you scout, you've told me before you like to watch every game they've ever done. I don't know, time permitting, if you can do that during a week. At this point in a season, like, are you going to go back and watch as much New Mexico as you can, or do you focus more on the last month or so, but be able to spend a lot of time on that? What's your philosophy?
So we, the last 2 nights, basically spent those nights going through the entire season of New Mexico, right? So we're going to, early on, you're going to go through what they've done this year, what makes them unique for this season, because maybe their personnel, maybe they're running this style of defense. As the week progresses, I'm going to go further back, especially a guy like Coach Long that's been coaching for that long at different places, is just look further on of things that he's done, or maybe things he's done against me, or things he's done against Boise, because there's a lot of games, obviously, in the past San Diego State and Boise have had. So just going through all those games and just, seeing kind of if there's anything that we can find that's unique, that's going to help us. But focus more early on the week, John, on what they do now, and then later in the week, just try to see if we can catch something else.
And Hank Bachmeier said you were stealing Ted Lasso quotes and then giving them to the team as your own. You've been caught, Coach. I just want to get your opinion on it.
I don't want him to out me on that. I think that was one time, and it was the Dark Forest quote. But I knew those guys weren't watching Ted Lasso, so I felt like I could get through it. Unfortunately, all this Lasso work that's been coming out the last few weeks, now all the guys are watching it. So, yep, they caught me on that one. I was watching it, thought it was a great deal for us to go through, and they bought it at first, but now they're onto it. So now I can't. Now they've seen all the episodes, so now I can't do it. I got to find my own stuff.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Sean.
So Will, Paul J, and Mike.
Hey, Tim, in your previous matchups going up against Coach Long, what's been the biggest challenge for you as a play caller against this defense?
When he was at San Diego State and we were at Northern Arizona or UC Davis, obviously there was a big talent gap there. So it's already a problem to deal with the chaotic nature of the defense. But then they had, with the talent that he had accrued there over time, then they were really difficult to deal with. So I think the hardest part when you're getting ready for a defense like this is you're trying to get the quarterback comfortable. I mean, I feel like my number one job during the week is to try to get him as comfortable as possible so that when he goes into the game, he can operate, get the ball out, and be very efficient. And he takes that away just by the chaotic nature of what they do, where it makes the quarterback second guess a lot. And if you can make the quarterback hesitant and late, then you can create a lot of sacks and a lot of turnovers and a lot of negative plays. So that's always been the biggest difficulty, is trying to create a situation where the quarterback can get comfortable.
What's Latrell Cables give you guys?
Love that guy. LC, and probably the biggest bummer for us was a couple weeks ago, we had played Oklahoma State. He had made a catch or two, I think, was starting to really come along, and then had this freak deal at practice where he kind of messed up his thumb in a one-on-one drill and had to get surgery. And that guy is a very explosive, unique player. We really feel like he's the future of that room. As a guy like Shaq starts to move out, we really feel like a guy like Latrell is going to step in and become the leader of that room. He's got a great work ethic about him, a quiet, unassuming guy, but very detailed in what he wants to do, very explosive. I'm excited to see him continue to get healthy and continue to grow within the offense. To get a couple balls last week was important for us to get him involved. So looking forward to him keep growing as the last few weeks go here.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Will.
Coach, you run the Wildcat, you run wide receivers, tight ends, at the quarterback position. What determines how much you use this kind of offense? And if you get a lead early, will you hide that stuff so San Diego State can't see it?
Yeah, whenever we go into a game, we're going to have some exotics that we want to get to. That might be all the things you were talking about, or it might be a trick play. Sometimes we want to get to those early. Sometimes we want to see how the game goes. And I think the reason you get to Wildcat plays normally is because, one, your quarterback is not a threat necessarily as a runner. So you want to create those +1 run situations. The problem with going Wildcat, right, is now everyone knows you've taken the quarterback out of that spot. So you want to create situations where you can do that at tempo and the defense can't recognize that the quarterback has been altered or they can't get that call in fast enough. So looking for those different situations that you can take advantage of comes down to defensively. If you feel like you want more quarterback run in the game plan, then you can find ways to do that, whether that's subbing in a guy like Talon or whether that's having a guy like George or Shaq play quarterback. So trying to decipher that is important. And then if we do get a lead on teams, obviously we don't want to show things that we have, similar to Fresno. I think the question last week, we had some more stuff for Talon that we were planning to use, but we had gotten a bigger lead and wanted to hang on to that stuff in case we needed it.
On the other side of the coin, do you ever throw stuff in just so the next team will have to prepare for it?
Absolutely. Late in games, if you have a lead, there's things we've done where we'll show a different formation or a different structure just so teams have to look at it. And again, I know for fans or for anyone, it might be like the Talon Green package for whatever, like, why the heck would you do that? Well, every team for the next few weeks has to practice that. So that's 10, 15, 20 minutes that they're going to not practice something else, that now they got to get ready for that in case we come out in that. So you're trying to create as many of those scenarios as you can throughout the year. So the fact that we've had George at quarterback and Shaq at quarterback and Talon at quarterback and Jack at quarterback and Hank at quarterback, and then we've had the exotic plays. If you run through our menu of film, there's going to be a lot of things you have to prepare for. And so hopefully that gives us an advantage.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Tim, with this offensive line and George Lonnie back, and it seems like, it's been dependable the last couple of weeks. It's growing. It's getting better. What is the ceiling with 3-4 games left in this year for this run game? How much better can it get if everybody stays healthy?
I still think, Mike, that we have a ways to go, but we're making consistent strides, I would say, right? Like you guys have noticed, just being able to get 3, 4, 5 yards a carry now and being able to depend on the run game, especially late in games. That's been important. I think what I'd like to see the last few weeks is us try to get more explosive runs, Mike. Right now we're doing a better job of avoiding the negative runs and having positive run yards, but we're not getting enough explosive plays. So, the game the other night, for example, we only got 10 possessions. Wyoming's got a slow pace. We're trying to run the football and we're doing a decent job, but we're not creating enough explosive plays. So now we're on these longer drives. I mean, that game felt like it got over in 2.5 hours the other night, right? So if we don't have enough possessions, then those possessions become really valuable. And we scored on 5 of the 10 possessions, which that's a good percentage. But like you guys are saying, we're settling for field goals. And so now that score becomes where we can't get ahead of a team enough to keep them out of the game. So if we're going to run the football efficiently, that's great. Now we got to get more explosive runs so that we can get those explosive plays. So we're not trying to do these long drives, and maybe that gets us another 2-3 possessions in the game that can help us get that point total to go up.
Talking to Andy, he mentioned that Andrew Van Buren has become the go-to guy for touchdowns in the red zone, and the stats obviously point that out. This is kind of a tongue-in-cheek question, but how much do you have to play the touchdown game in terms of, Cobbs has more touchdowns than Shaq, and I'm sure Shaq wants more touchdowns. Everybody wants more touchdowns. George wants more touchdowns. Strategy in winning a football game comes first, but behind the scenes, it's important for these guys to score touchdowns. How do you balance that?
I think what you want to do is when you come up with the game plan, you want the guys to feel like you are designing things to help them get involved. And, one guy I really want to point out is like Riley Smith, who has not had the year that I really hoped that he would have. And I take all the blame for that and not finding enough ways to get him the ball the way that, we had done in spring and in fall camp. And he's had a great attitude about it. And we talk weekly about trying to find ways to get him involved. And so every week we'll have a game plan and we'll say, okay, these 5 to 10 plays, these are the ones that we're trying to get you the ball. If we get in the red zone, this is really a play to try to get you the ball. This is a play to try to get you the ball. And it just may not hit that week, or maybe we don't get in the situation to call that specific play. You just want the guys to know that you're thinking about them, that you're trying to design things for everybody. And I want everyone to get as involved as possible. The cool thing about a guy like Andrew is, early on when the season started, we took him aside and said, listen, we got George, we got Cyrus, we got you, we got some talented backs. Here's a role that we feel like you could have, which is not what a tailback wants to hear. He wants to hear, I'm going to get 25 carries in the game. Hey, here's going to be your role. When we need to have a yard or we need to get yards down the red area, or we need to finish a game, we're going to turn to you. That's going to be your role. You know, can you thrive in that role, or are you going to take it negatively? And all he's done is thrived in that role and take it upon himself to be great in that role. And when he was asked to do more, he did more. That's why he's part of our leadership group for how he's handled that. So I know our guys get really excited for him when he gets to go in there and thrive in that role. And he's been tremendous for us down there. That run he had the other night was awesome. And that really helped us finish that game after Dimitri's turnover. So it was great. Thanks, Mike.
Go to Jay for the last couple of questions.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Jay.
I know that Khalil Shakir has obviously brought a lot to this team. In particular, has brought a lot to your offense. I know that you have a couple more games with him, but also in the spirit of senior day, how much will you miss Khalil Shakir next year?
You know, I think the bummer for me is I've only been around him for, a short time. And I know we've grown pretty close over the last year, having a lot of private talks about a lot of different things, not just football. I think I've said it before, as good as he is as a player, it's his humility and integrity that make him an elite person. And those are the guys you miss out on when they leave the program, is you hope that they have impacted enough people around. Maybe, like we talked about Latrell, you hope he impacted Latrell enough to where Latrell saw what made Shaq great. You hope he impacted Eric McAllister or any of these young wideouts that we feel are going to be really good players for us. But wish I could have been around him more than just a year. But I am definitely looking forward to the next few weeks and trying to get him the ball as much as we can and let him thrive and do his thing. And it's fun to watch. I mean, I was shocked when he did not come down with one of those balls the other night. I mean, weren't you guys just like shocked that didn't happen? Because all year, all he's done is make these ridiculous one-handed catches. And he had no business catching either of those balls the other night. And I thought, man, he's going to come down with one of those, So I just think those type of moments are going to be hard to forget. But I'm very thankful to have the time with him.
Tim, when it comes to the ground game, you guys have rushed for 160 yards in each of your last 3 wins, and if you crack the century mark this season, you guys are unbeaten. If you go back, years, if Boise State rushes for 160 yards on the blue, they're like 81-1. Why is that like the magic number? It feels like for what you need out of your ground game for everything else to take care of itself. It's the mentality that I know Andy talks about that has been part of this program for a long time. And, what we were lacking early in the season was a consistent balance of attack that was going to allow us to sustain success. And so even when we come out and throw the football, we're very confident we could go out and throw the ball for 300, 400 yards a week if we wanted to. But what you would lack in that scenario is the mentality to be able to finish games and win those games at the end. And you think about some of the games we lost early in the year, those close games. I think some of that has to do with the fact that we weren't committed to it and didn't have the guys intact. So many injuries and so many things moving around where we couldn't get consistent enough attack in the ground to where we could wear teams out. So late in the games, we could do what we've done the last few weeks, which is go on these 7-8 minute drives in the fourth quarter to put teams away. So it's like a boxing match. It's if you come out throwing haymakers early, you might knock them out, but you also might wear yourself out and not be able to sustain the attack. If you can come out and have a consistent attack that lands body punches and you can add those up as the fight goes, then the fighters can wear out as the games are over. So I think that's the mentality that resembles our head coach and resembles the teams that have been here for a long time. I think as our O-line gets more consistent, as Mike was saying, as we've been healthy the last few weeks and getting George back and getting guys healthy, we've been able to be better there, and we've been more committed to it. So that's something we need to continue to do going forward, but we've got to get more explosive plays. We've got to get a higher point total on the scoreboard so that these games aren't in the 20s. We've got to get a number that makes it more difficult for our opponents to contend with. Tim, appreciate it. By the way, Hank says that his mustache is better than yours.
Hank's mustache is awful, and I'm sure you guys agree. It is a sign of a young man that needs to grow a little more. You know what I mean? Like we just need to get some more facial hair going there. But I appreciate his commitment to what we're trying to do here. There's like more people jumping on board every week. I haven't seen any of you jump on board, which that's fine. But but I see more people jumping on board every week. So we'll see. We'll keep this train going.
All right, Tim, appreciate the time this week. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great week.